In a world where legends rise and fall with every punch, where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're back. We're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York, a snowy Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiuri, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux from Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now. Where all good books are sold. You can get a copy while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit Amazon.com or listen. I still think we got that special going on. So just visit BillyCBoxing.com and you can get it direct from the publisher. And it's at a discounted price. So check that out, BillyCBoxing.com. Just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. We took a couple of weeks off for the holidays. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday season. And we're back ready to get to work here with the sport of boxing. So it's great to be back. And coming up on the show today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the big fights that took place since our last show. And there was a couple. And we'll also be talking about the latest boxing news. I got a great email from one of our listeners and much, much more. I'll be breaking down and predicting Ajit KBL's fight, which is scheduled for this weekend. This week's guest is Fight News' editor-in-chief, my man Boxing Bob Newman. And also Dax Khan is going to stop by and hang out with us too. But first, I'm going to give a shout out to my man Coach, who's in the chat room already, and Joel. Glad you guys could be here. The word on the curb, man. Manny Pacquiao and Tank Davis. I've seen a lot of posts about it. I've seen, that this fight is in the works, trying to be made. To be honest with you, right now, Manny Pacquiao is pushing for a weight class that's above what Tank Davis normally fights at. But I mean, geez, Tank Davis was about to fight Jake Paul, so I just wonder what your thoughts are on this fight. I mean, my opinion, first of all, I don't even know why Manny Pacquiao is continuing to fight. I mean, he's got nothing left to prove. He's an all-time great. He's as far as my all-time great list, pound-for-pound list, he's above Floyd Mayweather on my list. I see all the propaganda on social media and posts and people. I think it comes from Floyd himself, but he's always, he's the best, he's the GOAT. He's not. Sugar Ray Robinson is. But when I like to wait 5 years after a fighter retires, and then I can put him on my all-time great list. And I actually have, despite Floyd beating Manny, and he did. I know that there's some diehard Manny Pacquiao fans out there that swear that Manny Pacquiao beat Floyd and got robbed, which is not the case. But overall, I think Manny is above Floyd on my list anyway. And the reasons are simple. Number one, he challenged himself way more than Floyd ever did. Number two, He was an exciting fighter. You wanted to see him fight. And number three, he brought good stuff to the sport of boxing. He was a likable guy, still is. I don't mean to be talking about him in the past tense, but overall, I think his skill set was better. I think Floyd had a better defense than Manny, but Manny's hand speed and agility was way better than Floyd. So I have him, above him. But that's not the point that I'm making. My point that I'm making is why the hell is Manny still even trying to fight? I know he wants to prove. I don't know what he wants to prove. What does he want to prove? I mean, that's the big question. Does he need money? I mean, the man made. I don't even know how much. I know, obviously Floyd has made more money than anyone else in the sport of boxing. But why Manny's doing? I know he gave and continues to give a lot of money away. But Tank Davis and Manny Pacquiao. My first thing is, why Manny? Why? My second thing is, okay, let's look at the fight. Do you really think that Manny could beat Tank Davis? Um, assuming he's the bigger guy, which is kind of funny when you think about how small Manny was when he started fighting. But Tank Davis is an extremely talented fighter. Many people give him a lot of flack over his last fight, in which he didn't look that great. But overall, he's got hand speed, he's got punching power, and Manny Pacquiao has certainly lost a step, which was, which I would have given him the advantage if they both fought in their prime. You can make the argument that Tank Davis is still in his prime. Again, this is my reason. I mean, Manny Pacquiao seems to be challenging himself to prove that he can beat, a top fighter today at 40 something years old. I don't know what you guys think. Dax, who's going to be coming on the show here in a couple of minutes, he's in the chat room. He says he just can't get rid of the itch. Um, my man coach is saying he has over 500 million. No, well, he's saying no, that he doesn't need money. He's got over 500 million. Did he spend 500 million on his political run? I don't know. I had always heard rumors that Manny Pacquiao gave a lot of money away, to friends, family, church members. He's huge in the Philippines, of course. I also heard a lot of rumors that they were real close to making Manny Pacquiao and a Floyd Mayweather rematch, which to me, I mean, both of these fighters are well past their prime, but to me, that particular fight makes more sense if what Dax is saying here in the chat room is true, that Manny can't get rid of the itch. We all know, especially people that are involved in the sport of boxing, we all know how boxing is. Once you're involved, you can't stop. I mean, it's like a drug. It's really strange how it infiltrates your system. But I'm curious to know what anybody else thinks. I know we got some people in the chat room talking about some other stuff. So if you're watching or listening live, come on over to the chat room on the YouTube page. I know we're on several platforms, but come on over, give us your thoughts, and we'll talk about that during the show. Speaking about talking about some stuff, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. You guys know that I was inducted last year. It was probably the best honor I've ever had in the sport of boxing. Well, they announced this year's inductees, and I just want to say congratulations to my man Randy Gordon, Lou DiBella, Mark Allen Baker, who great writer. I love his stuff. Hopefully we'll get Mark on here soon. China Smith, who I worked with on a couple of fights in Florida. He got in. Kenny Gould, Zab Judah, Sherman Tank Williams, Bob Arum, Manny Stewart, to name a few. So congrats to the 2026 Florida Boxing Hall of Famers. I'm hoping that I can make it to the induction weekend. That'll be coming up in June. So check out FloridaBoxingHallOfFame.com for all the information. Get yourself some tickets and go down there. It's really the only Hall of Fame that is better in terms of a weekend event. You would have to say is the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But to be honest with you, what I like about the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame is everybody's available to you. They don't herd the fighters and the inductees and the guests in like cattle the way the International Boxing Hall of Fame does. And to be honest with you, I don't. I used to never miss the International Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend. And these last several years, I unless Alex Papali or somebody, talks me into going, it's very hard for me to get up and go. I mean, and it's not even that far away from me. It's about 2.5 hours, but I just don't like the way the fighters are treated. Years ago, when it first was around, you'd be able to, mingle with fighters on the grounds and get autographs and photos and stuff. And that's the way the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame is. Great job, Steve Canton does a fantastic job. I'm not going to forget to mention Dayla Duran. I'm having a hard time speaking. Who keeps everybody in line. Love the woman. She just recently had a birthday, so happy birthday, Dayla. And hopefully I'll be back down there again. So, hey, some fights that took place while we were on our holiday break. Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul, they fought, and Joshua knocked out Jake Paul in the 6th round, broke his jaw. My thoughts on this fight, first and foremost, Ronaldo is such. I don't know why anybody would want this guy to be calling fights. He is so annoying. I have to turn off the sound, so I'm not sure how many times he talked about his stupid little phrases and everything else. But the guy is terrible. The intros that they were given to these guys, to Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul, were the longest introductions that I've ever heard in a live boxing match. I mean, it was comical. It really was. It was comical. Coach is saying Ronaldo fits it right because Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua was a WWE. It's true. Here's the thing: 33 million viewers. Here's the thing: what did I think of the fight? Well, I thought Anthony Joshua, even though he knocked out Jake Paul in the 6th round, I didn't think he looked that good. Jake Paul was running around the ring like a chicken, trying to avoid the punch, and I was shocked that Anthony Joshua didn't cut the ring off and just take out Jake Paul earlier in the fight. There's all kinds of rumors of why, but from a tactical standpoint and from a talent standpoint, there were many times when he could have just cut the ring off and trapped Jake Paul against the ropes, which he had him against the ropes and in the corner several times, and wasn't able to hit him. He missed a lot and everything else. It was sad to watch. And then it was even more sad to watch when he did start connecting with Paul, and Jake Paul was in serious trouble. To be honest with you, why his corner let him come out after the 5th round was pretty shocking, and the fact that the referee didn't stop it sooner. I mean, he was clearly in trouble. Now, with all that said, before the knockout, with all that said, I got to be honest with you, boys and girls. I give Jake Paul credit. He showed me that he's pretty tough. He stood in there and took the shots. Shows me that he had the balls to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Not many fighters today would do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not jumping on an Anthony Joshua bandwagon. I still don't think that he's very talented at all. Some people were saying, well, if he lands, he's got power. No, he doesn't. Not for really, compared to real fighters. I was more disgusted with Anthony Joshua's performance. And it started making me think that Anthony Joshua is finished. Um, Sadly, after the fight, Anthony Joshua was in Nigeria and was involved in a car accident in the morning before noon. It was around 11:30, and apparently, his two close friends were killed in the accident. Anthony Joshua was in the hospital for 3 days. And he was treated for some injuries. All the updates I'm seeing, they don't know when he'll be able to train again. From all the accounts prior to them saying, more recently, they don't know when he can start training again. Didn't seem like he was all that hurt. But two guys got killed in the accident, which is horrific. And apparently, the driver of the car was arrested and charged with reckless and dangerous driving, causing death, driving without care, causing bodily harm and damage to property. And he was also charged with not having a valid driver's license. I mean, how do people without a valid driver's license in any state or country be allowed to drive? Especially commercial. This was a limo. This was a car that they rented. I mean, it was a Lexus SUV, but these guys rented the car. He was driving them. So it's absurd. But thoughts and prayers go out to the family of those who passed away, and hopefully Anthony Joshua will get a speedy recovery. And hold that thought about Anthony Joshua. Because I'm going to bring him up here in a couple of minutes. Monster Inoue fought a fantastic fight. I don't know if you guys caught this fight against Alan David Picasso. Inoue improved to 32-0 with 27 knockouts, and Picasso dropped to 32-1-1 with 17 knockouts. The fight went the distance. Inoue won by a unanimous decision, 119-109, 120-108, 117-111. I don't know if you saw this fight, but Inoue looked fantastic. I mean, Picasso is a good fighter, and he made him look ordinary. I'm watching this fight, and I got to be honest. In my opinion, Inoue looked as close as Lomachenko as I've ever seen another fight. I think Vasily Lomachenko was the definition of the sweet science. I mean, this is a guy that, hit and not get hit, but he's standing right in front of you. He's 2-3 feet away from you, and you can't hit the guy because of his defensive skill. And he's pounding the shit out of you at the same time, all within punching distance. That's the sweet science, not, avoid a punch and run to the other end of the ring and make your opponent come and chase you. And I've always said I thought Lomachenko in recent times did it better than anyone until the fight the other day, a couple of weeks ago with Inoue against Picasso. He looked the same. He was able to pivot. He was right there. He looked fantastic. It was really the first time that I got to watch him fight and be able to stop and replay. And usually I'm catching him, either replays of it because of the times and the days fighting in Japan. This was perfect where it was fought. It was in Saudi Arabia. And listen, I was impressed. I can't say enough about him. And then the other guy whose name is always mentioned with Inoue, especially lately, is the undefeated southpaw Junto Nakatanya, who's 32-0 with 24 knockouts. And he fought Sebastian Hernandez. And what a close fight this was. I mean, it started out and you're thinking Nakatani's going to just destroy him because that's the way it felt. And next thing you know, it seemed like he ran out of gas a little bit, Nakatani. And we go to the scorecards 115, 113 twice. And then one judge had it 118, 110, which was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous score because I could live with the 115, 113 either way, boys and girls. I mean, to be honest with you, you could make a strong argument that Hernandez won the fight or at least earned a draw. I mean, I'll accept the one round swing at 115, 113 because you know how sometimes a round is close; it could go either way. So I'm not calling it a robbery by any stretch, but the 118, 110 score was clearly a crazy, crazy score. So, but it was interesting fight. It was entertaining, and we'll see what happens from there. Some other fights that took place. Noel McKillian improved to 28-3 with 12 knockouts when he won a unanimous decision over Bordeaux Jack. Jack drops to 29-4 with 3 draws and 17 knockouts. This was a really good fight. It was very entertaining. I watched it on Triller TV. I absolutely loved the broadcast team on Triller. I'm jealous that I'm not part of it because you had Paulie Malignaggi and Sean Porter as the analysts and Ray Flores. You remember Ray Flores? He used to be an announcer, young kid. Well, you know, he's getting a little older now. And he did a great job. These guys, they called the fight the way I always say Nick Charles. I always try to follow it when I call fights, like what Nick Charles used to say. Call the action as you see it. What's going on in front of you? Not yelling, not screaming, not talking about the dinner you had 2 weeks ago. And then trying to talk about every single punch that's thrown, every move, like the people that are watching it don't know what they're watching. I mean, occasionally you got to give some commentary, but you got to assume that the people that are watching the fight understand some of it. To put it in perspective, it's like watching a football game, okay, and having the announcers say, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so-and-so quarterback has just handed off the ball." Now, handing off the ball means when you take the snap from the center and you put it in the belly of the running back, and then the running back tries to gain yardage on his own. That's what a handoff is, boys and girls. If an announcer said that, I think football fans would storm the studios. But that's what some of these guys do. I mentioned Mario Ronaldo. He's the worst I have ever seen, and I can't even listen to him. And how he keeps getting these gigs, I don't know. But hats off to Triller because they did a great job, and that was a really interesting fight. So we'll see what happens with that. And of course, right after that fight, Jai Apatea called out Noel McKillian, and rightfully so. It just seems that everybody is avoiding Apatea. This guy, in my opinion, is the prime and the best cruiserweight. I think that he could bring a lot of interest in the cruiserweight division if he could get some of these fights. And a fight against McKillian would be good. He says, and I quote, "First of all, congrats to Noel McKillian. He put in a strong, gritty performance against an experienced fighter in Bordeaux Jack." Remember, Jack was the champ, and he deserved the win. Becoming a 2-time champion is no small achievement. But now's the time is right to unify the titles. I'm the IBF and Ring Magazine champ. He's the WBC champ. This is the fight that makes sense for boxing and for the cruiserweight division. The fans want to see who the real number one fighter is, and I'm ready to prove it. I respect Noel as a fighter and a champ, but I believe I'm the best cruiserweight in the world. And he says, let's unify the belts and show the fans what the division is really about. You know what? I can't really agree with him anymore. I just can't, One other fight I want to mention, which was kind of a surprise to me, all right? Murat Gassiev was fighting, and I always love this because this shows you, in my opinion, why I don't value the WBA at all. Okay, because they have the nerve to actually have someone that they label as the regular WBA World Heavyweight Champion, not to be confused with the WBA Interim Champion or the WBA Champion in Recess or the WBA Super Heavyweight Champion. Don't be confused by all the other champions they have. This is the regular heavyweight champion, and the champion going into the fight was Kubrat Pulev, and Kubrat Pulev got his tail kicked by Murat Gassiev, and it was a really good fight. So I don't know if you saw it, but if you haven't, check it out. And one other thing I wanted to mention that took place during our um, little holiday was Terrence Crawford retired. Hey Dax, if you can hear me, you apparently one of your devices aren't connecting, so I'm not getting your video. But Dax is going to be joining us here in a second. But Terrence Crawford, in my opinion, the best fighter out there today, officially retired. You know, I, I I I appreciate him retiring. I actually think that was a good thing for him to do. He's got nothing else left to prove. He did try to make a rematch with Canelo materialize. The two sides couldn't come to an agreement. He had already given up the WBC belt, so to speak, because he wouldn't pay the fee, and the WBC took it back from him. I'm glad that he retired. I think he has nothing left to prove. And I think that this was a guy in recent times that did it his way. Like Frank Sinatra said, he did it his way. And I love the guy, and I think he'll forever be cemented in history for challenging himself the way he did. Joining us right now is my main man, Dax Khan. Dax, Happy New Year, brother. How you doing?
Happy New Year!
How's it going?
Um, like everybody else, it's a little bit crazy. Is it just me, or have you noticed that whether or not it's your iPhone, whether or not it's your computer, like all the apps are just like buggy?
Yeah, they bug me. No, no, I know. My phone sometimes doesn't it like doesn't ring or doesn't respond. I got people going, I've been calling you. They don't, and it doesn't ring. I have to reboot it a lot. And it's a brand new phone. So
Yeah,
yeah.
my aunt said that the other day. She'll be sitting there, or somebody called me earlier today, and they're going, "Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And I can hear them, and I'm saying yes, and I feel like I'm like, "What am I in a Verizon commercial here?"
Yeah, yeah. But hey, did you see the Inoue fight?
I did.
What do you? Yeah, I know you love him, and I really dissected that fight, and I rewatched every round after because I was able to. He looked fantastic in the fight. I mean, I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard me, but I think he is the closest thing in terms of what I call the sweet science to Lomachenko. What's your thoughts?
Well, I won't go as far as Lomachenko.
I said as close to Lomachenko.
Close to Lomachenko. No, the only thing that's close to Lomachenko is Alexander Usyk. But in terms of the way we've seen him fight, I think that getting knocked down in his fight,
Previous, right? It was
yeah,
previous.
his previous fight, I think that made him kind of say, you know what, I gotta start boxing more and not just rely on the power, which comes with maturity. He's been able to dominate for so long that he learned a lot with the Nonito Donaire fight, and at those weights, the careers come to an end a little bit shorter. And I think that in a way, another 2 fights, 3 fights, maybe 5 fights at the most. I think he most likely he'll hang him up.
Yeah, he's no spring chicken anymore. But you know what the reason why I mentioned Lomachenko is I never noticed Inoue pivot as sharply as he was in that fight, pivoting like without moving much and being able to land substantial shots to Picasso in that fight. I mean, I've seen him attack. I've seen him go in and attack, and obviously he's got pop, knocking people out, getting, like you mentioned, getting up off the canvas and winning. His boxing skill, movement, all those things. But I never really noticed how well he pivoted to avoid a punch and was right back at a different angle to inflict damage. I thought I thought he looked better than normal, if that makes any sense.
I don't think he's ever had to before, really. Prior to the Neary fight, worry about that, and not that in the Neary fight that he was hurt, but I think that again, as you mature, and David Picasso is one of those fighters, kind of like a young Jaime Mugaya or a young Canelo, where they just showed up out of nowhere. I think he fought maybe once or twice on undercards here in the U.S., but he's a skilled fighter. No, he doesn't have hard punching power, but everybody on his record isn't like a lot of these Mexican fighters that come for the first time where they all have losing records. And, he slowly built up his level of competition. And he's a great counterpuncher and he has great footwork. So I knew he had to kind of adjust. If you want to make a comparison in that, I would more or less, I'd use Triple G as an example. When Triple G had to adjust, he had to adjust. And in the way he had to adjust, he had to cut off the ring and he had to box and not worry about slugging. And he knew he was going to come out the winner one way or the other. He did his job, and that's what makes greats.
Speaking of Triple G, he was ringside for the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua fight. They should have threw him a couple of extra bucks so he would smile. The guy, he looked like he was like being tortured there, and then sitting next to him is Usyk, who looked like he was having a grand old time there. What was your thoughts on that fight? I mean, I obviously the outcome is what we all thought, but I kind of give more credit to Jake Paul for stepping in the ring than Anthony Joshua's performance. I thought that, yes, he knocked him out. I'm not being critical of that, but it took him too long, I thought.
Yeah, Joshua, he's not a kid anymore. He overindulges when he's not training. As we know, he is way too muscular. Years ago, I always brought up that point where it was, is he going to be the next Lennox Lewis or is he going to be the next Frank Bruno? Right. And unfortunately, he's neither. In terms of stamina and power, he's Frank Bruno, but he's not as loved as Frank Bruno. Everybody loves Frank Bruno still to this day, and he's definitely no Lennox Lewis. Before, when you were saying, about his skill set, if we go back to some shows and we pull him up from maybe, 2017, you had anointed Anthony Joshua the next greatest heavyweight of all time.
I did. And listen, that's what makes him, that's why I get so pissed when I watch him now, because he did have it all. He fought stupid. Like in that fight, okay, you go back to the Daniel Dubois fight, right? Dubois hurts him, and he has boxing skill. Instead of getting on his toes and using that jab, which he had, instead he tries to go punch for punch with the guy and ends up getting knocked out. When he fought Jake Paul, I was shocked that he wasn't cutting the ring. Come on. He's an Olympic medalist. He knows how to cut the ring off, and he's chasing him around like it was almost comical. And then what was with the leg holding? What was with Jake Paul holding that leg? He looked like he was a dog, a puppy dog or something.
Poor Jake by that point, he was a rag doll, literally. But Anthony Joshua, very much like Deontay Wilder, who were the two guys that everybody was debating back and forth about, not only did he lose a lot of his self-confidence in the first Andy Ruiz fight, I believe he would have lost the second Andy Ruiz fight if Andy Ruiz Jr. did not do exactly what I just criticized Anthony Joshua about, partying and gaining all that weight in between the rematch. But then, just as you stated, in terms of he's an Olympic gold medalist, he goes back to back and loses to Alexander Usyk, who was a cruiserweight moving up, and Alexander Usyk not known as a hard puncher. So again, Anthony Joshua figured that eventually he would clip him, and it didn't happen. And then he realized that wait a minute, despite being the fact that I am a two-time unified world champion, heavyweight champion of the world. Despite the fact that I won gold at the Olympics in 2012, which Usyk won gold at the same Olympics, I'm being made to look like I don't belong in the ring with this guy. And that does a lot psychologically. And so what does he do? He goes back to relying on the power. And as you get older and you're not being smarter and fighting smarter, old habits die hard. And the old habits with him are going to stay with him and they're going to die hard.
When you look at Anthony Joshua and the two fights with Usyk, I mean, clearly everything you're saying was true with the first one. The second fight, I thought that he was a lot more serious. And to be honest with you, that fight was a hell of a lot closer and could have gone either way. He felt he was robbed in that fight. And then you might be 100% correct with saying that, mentally, he after losing the two times in a row, that was the end of Anthony Joshua. And to tell you the truth, I know he made a ton of money with Jake Paul, and assuming he's all healthy from the car accident. I mean, the only fight that makes sense for him, I think, is against Tyson Fury. I mean, the two of them, it's still a big fight in England. They both can make some money, and the winner gets to advance. I'm real disappointed that your boy Usyk is fighting Deontay Wilder. I get it. I know people are saying, oh, well, he could say he beat every, substantial heavyweight in that era. But Deontay Wilder, Usyk, unless he's just looking for an easy fight, which he's never done, the guy has always challenged himself. I don't know what to think. What do you think of that fight?
Another show we can go delve into that a little bit deeper, but we did touch on that, I think, at one of the shows before the end of the year, how a lot of these fights got made at that WBC convention. It wasn't just Usyk. There was a couple other people that were given more or less easy mandatories for whichever reason. I don't know, Christmas, Thanksgiving, I'm not really sure, but he wasn't the only one. There was like three or four that I can't remember off the top of my head right now in multiple divisions. So it wasn't just Usyk, and Deontay Wilder, being Deontay Wilder, wanted to fight, and he was calling him out and just clowning around. So Usyk, being Usyk, he'll fight anybody, and he said, okay, fine, we'll make the fight. But Deontay Wilder, again, there's a guy who not only did he lose to Tyson Fury those multiple times, but then he loses to Joseph Parker, and then he lost again, and then so Deontay Wilder, and he's 40 years old, and Usyk, he's no kid either. He's 38 years old. We're having a new era usher in, so we got to give some of these guys a break. And we talk about, or people talk about, well, take a Manny Pacquiao type, he fights Miguel Cotto, and then he goes and he fights Margarito, and then he fights Mosley, and then he fights whoever else was willing to, Ricky Hatton, rest his soul. And then people say, well, he deserves an easy fight. I think Alexander Usyk deserves an easy fight. I mean, the guy is at the end of his career.
Yeah, I mean, look, the potential of Deontay Wilder landing a power shot, I mean, that's always there, but he's not gonna be able to hit Usyk. I mean, of all people. But I don't know. Speaking of Manny, Dax, what's your thoughts about this hot fight that they're trying to make? I don't know how hot it will be, but it's hot for them financially. But Manny Pacquiao against Tank Davis. I mean, why?
I don't, Tank Davis is another one that we know and we've seen even prior to the Roach fight has kind of lost his desire in the sport.
No, he's definitely lost his desire. There's no question about that.
Yeah, we have to blame a lot of that on Floyd Mayweather. He hasn't been happy with that contract and being with Mayweather for years, and he's been very vocal about it. He's never been quiet about it, but they have him like locked in ways that Don King never thought of. So him versus Manny Pacquiao, it'd make a lot of money. I think it would be one of those fights where both of them will walk away. If I think Manny Pacquiao will be forced to walk away. Tank Davis, a lot of people criticize him for laying on the ropes. Tank Davis does that because he can. But remember, Tank Davis, when time comes to it and he's told he's behind on the cards, he'll come off the ropes, he'll get into the center of that ring, he'll move around. He has great footwork and he's a great counterpuncher, which is Manny Pacquiao's weakness. And Manny Pacquiao just can't stand there, especially at this age, and trade with Tank Davis. So I think it's a disaster of a fight, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. He definitely can't move. The only advantage that he has, Manny, is that he's pushing for a heavier weight, and we all know when if Tank doesn't have to come in at his normal weight, which he struggles with anyway, he's going to be a little chubby, and that might play into Manny's hands. But I don't see. I hate to say it because I don't want to see it, but I would rather see Manny Pacquiao and Floyd have a rematch before I see Manny Pacquiao fighting a guy like Tank Davis.
I'd just rather see Manny Pacquiao not fight at all.
No, I agree with that 100%. And you know what? You got to give him credit. I mean, in his last fight, he came awfully close to winning. And I think that was probably the worst thing that happened because, he feels he should have won, so he's keeping going,
Yeah, that mentality of,
Right.
It's always that age-old expression, they always think they have one more fight in them.
Hey, Dax, one last thing. I got Boxing Bob Newman coming on, but Terrence Crawford retired. We've talked a lot about his career and some of the moves, especially the jump with Canelo Alvarez. But what's your thoughts on his retirement? I'm okay with it. What's your thoughts?
He's 38. He has nothing to accomplish. The fans that criticize him
I can't
should be
believe it.
ashamed.
I know.
They are what they get mad about when people, especially on social media, go about, well, you're a casual. I mean, Terrence Crawford fought great opposition. Some of
Do you
his
remember? Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you remember us talking about when he first busted onto the scene? And he was this undefeated guy out of Nebraska. He was on Showtime, and he was brought in to lose at least the first three fights that we got to see him on primetime. He wasn't supposed to win, and we kept saying the guy is good. And then all those years, everyone said, he never fought anybody. How could they say that? He fought everybody that was available.
Well, for example, I think the one fight he has gotten the most criticism about was the Ndongo fight. Now, okay, Ndongo was a decent fighter. No, he wasn't elite, but he did have a title. And the only way you can fully unify a division is to fight everybody who has a title. So he had no
Absolutely.
choice in the matter.
Exactly.
Victor Postol was a good fighter. Victor Postol was supposed to lose against Lucas Matisse, but Postol dominated. Then everybody loved Postol. He was going to be the next future of the 140-pound division.
Yep.
But when he got in with Terrence Crawford, now all of a sudden Postol was overrated and he was average. And, it goes on and on and on. They made excuses for his win over Errol Spence. Errol Spence is a guy that has fought most of his career 140-pound fighters who moved up, guys that were a lot smaller than him, guys that had undefeated records but never beat anybody with a winning record. He fought a lot of guys that were just PBC fighters. It's not like, he reached out and fought everybody. Terrence Crawford, there's nothing the man could do did he get enough credit for. Bob Arum, I remember coming out, that made me so mad when he said that he's lost money all the time on Terrence Crawford promoting him and every pay-per-view. But Terrence Crawford pushed through, and he proved people wrong every single time, including the Canelo fight. I mean, he's getting backlash for Canelo.
I
Oh,
know.
the big backlash is because Canelo didn't fight David Benavidez. Canelo dug Benavidez. Crawford caught an old slipping Canelo. Really, come on now.
They-
Who was Benavidez fought?
There are actual people that feel that Canelo was winning the fight. I mean, it was completely absurd. And you're right. I mean, Terrence Crawford. They criticized the Errol Spence. How could you criticize Errol Spence? I mean, he didn't just squeak out a win. He beat the hell out of these guys. I mean, it's not. He did not put it in the judge's hands. And
In
I'm
that, in that Terrence Crawford fight, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in that Terrence Crawford fight, I actually believe that. I mean, in that Errol Spence fight, I actually believe that Terrence Crawford could have ended it a lot earlier.
I
I think
know
that
he
he
took his
punished
foot off.
him.
He took his foot off the gas in that fight. And I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't understand why the fans don't like him. And then with this whole thing with the WBC, they turned on him. Everybody did, even Oscar De La Hoya. And I'm like, you know what? I was supportive of Terrence Crawford doing that because and you know what? They forget about other great fighters and that didn't need a title to sell out. Floyd is a great example. I hate to use Floyd because I'm
Well,
not a
Tank
big
is a
fan.
great example.
You know, yeah, no, you're right. Tank's a great, but he didn't need the belt. Who was it? Who threw the belt in the garbage? Riddick Bowe, right?
Riddick Bowe did, but Floyd Mayweather, for example, remember he actually got rid of the WBO belt because he
Right. No,
just
no.
didn't want to pay the sanctioning fee. So it's
Ex-
not just Terrence Crawford. A lot of fighters have done it over the years. They vacated. Canelo himself has had back and forth with the WBC over the years about telling, you're not going to tell me who to fight. When they come up with these ridiculous mandatories. So I mean, it's that in its own could be a show.
No, I know. Well, listen, we're definitely going to we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about over this year. So we'll coordinate that and get you back on and do that. I appreciate you coming on the last minute.
Yeah, I just thought about it. I said, something? It's 2026.
I know.
It's 18 years now since I have been involved with Billy in the show. So you know what? I got to at least stop by and say hello.
No,
Uh,
I mean, think about that. No, I mean, when I look at before we came on today, Jeremy C created the intro, and he took shots from past 22 years. And I'm looking at some of them, I'm like, holy shit, I was young 22 years ago, but time flies, doesn't it?
it does. I mean, I remember the first Hall of Fame that we attended together. How great! Remember with Dave and us sitting in the room. That's the year that we had rescored the Leonard and Hagler fight.
Yep. Yep.
And I still have some pictures of us in the hotel. Somebody had taken. I forget if it was Alex or whoever it was, because I know Alex's brother was there. And we all looked a lot younger.
No, I know. Hey, did you catch any of the clips? I found the video from that Billy C Boxing Hall of Fame that we did with Scully and Ernie Shavers was there and Marlon Starling. You obviously.
Yeah, I did see that. I found that on someplace else. There's also a website out there I gotta find floating around that actually has the original content from the original website, including the list of all the previous and past guests. Speaking of that Hall of Fame, I had posted something about that, and then I had reposted that somewhere on Facebook, and John Scully and me were going back and forth talking about, and then somebody asked to the picture of Joe Gann's great nephew.
Yep.
And I had accidentally put his great grandson. And this guy goes on this big rant about how I don't know nothing about boxing. I'm making stuff up. Joe Gans didn't have any kids. I'm like, I said it was something came right on. I said, John Scully was right there. I said, look at all the guys that were there.
Yeah, no. And what's his name was there who introduced him. And it was, I think, yeah, it was the great grand nephew because the
Yeah.
great granddaughter was the one who brought him there. Yeah. And then who was the other kid? There was another relative of a fighter, and we had the picture of the two great grandsons or great grandnephews together. They were the two kids. I'm trying to remember what fighter that was.
Oh gosh, I forget. Right now, here's one for you that's floating around out there too. Now we know that you can butcher a name
No, nobody can butcher a name better than me, Dax.
You can butcher a name better than a
Yes,
hunter can butcher wildlife. But
this is true. This is true.
say it with me slow.
Uh-uh.
Ben. Say it
Ben
with Wa.
Wa.
There
Benoit.
you go. Benoit.
What?
Remember the year that we had outside of Graziano's, and he passed away not too long ago too. The
I
show
know, 103.
Graziano, yeah, at 103 years old. All the great memories there.
Yeah.
One day we should just talk about just like that one night. Remember when Dave and everybody rushed over there from the hotel because Marvin Hagler was there for 10 minutes.
Yep.
We got to
Yeah.
see Marvin, walking out of the place, but and remember when we did the show out there for 3 days? John was there, Dawn was there, Sal when he was alive was there. We had like Willie Monroe was on the show. Wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
guys, but the day before that at the hotel, we had one of the round tables with you, me, Alex, and the Canadian fighter Bob Benoit, and you just kept making mistakes. You kept butchering his last name, and the guy keeps looking at you, and he's like, he wants to say something, but he's not because he's just such a nice guy.
Well, I tell you, Randy Gordon said to me when he was a guest speaker, and he's got inducted this year in the Florida Boxing Hall. He was a guest speaker when I was there, and he keeps saying to me, he was making fun of how I said because I used to pronounce what's his name incorrectly, and he's like, who is the middleweight that I murdered his name? And he's a super middleweight now. He fought. Oh, he was the one they wouldn't let fight. I'm going blank. It's age is a killer. He's the one they wouldn't let fight Mayweather, because he wasn't experienced enough.
Oh, Mungaya?
Yeah, Mungaya. And I kept calling him Mungia and Jaime. I would say Jamie, and Randy says, "Go ahead, say it. You know the fighter." Say it. And I'm like, I know how to say it now, And I was like, Jaime Mungia.
One thing is for sure, and you mentioned it earlier, especially since you brought up Randy, the Commish Gordon, and over the years, starting before internet and websites, a lot of people don't realize that boxing is a lifestyle, whether or not you're a fighter, whether or not you are a legitimate writer long term, whether or not you work with sanctioning bodies, whether or not you are a promoter, PR, etc., and so on. And when everybody gets together and there's no fans around, we're ourselves. And we do stupid stuff like we don't pronounce names right, or we make dumb jokes, or we just that's just the way
Sounds
it
like
is.
you're
But
talking about
life
me,
is
Dax. It sounds.
no, everybody. It's boxing. I don't know. John Scully. There's an old article. I think I can maybe dig it up on YouTube, on Google somewhere, where I was going to interview John Scully for I forget who we was training at the time, but the reception was bad. And me and Scully are talking for like 5 minutes about the potential fight. Then we start talking about everything else. We're talking about groceries. We're talking about the directions of the GPS. I ended up just naming the title of the article, "A Chat with John Scully," talking with the Iceman. I mean, he's dropping, like Virgil Hill. I remember Virgil Hill, somebody was asking me about some of the most memorable or some of the funniest stories. Virgil Hill, I remember when Virgil Hill moved up to cruiserweight, that he had to find his own opponent. He was asking me if I could track down Henry Mosk because they were going to have a rematch, because that's when the WBA had just come out with the super version. And Virgil is actually over in Europe, and he used to carry with him a case of throwaway cell phones because he would actually drop them. And one time we're talking, he drops it in the urinal. There's another time where Joshua Claudy wanted me to interview him, and like 3 or 4 times we kept missing each other. And then one night he called me at like 9:30, and I'm speaking to him, and Joshua has a thick accent, and I'm hearing like all these strange sounds. And I'm going, saying, "Joshua, what is that?" He goes, "Oh, I'm taking a bath. I
Yeah, I
think it was a
remember.
good time to call."
I remember.
I'm like, it's just, it's a lifestyle, and people forget, no matter how big the star is, they are an average person when they're away from the cameras and the lights. And same thing with doesn't matter if you're a referee, whether or not you are Don King. It's boxing, but it is a lifestyle, and
No,
it is addicting. And once you get into it, you're into it.
that is 100% correct. But all right, Dax, we will be catching you again. And just remember, I was right about Lennox Lewis. I told you he was an all-time great, and you didn't want to believe me.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that one day. Oh, remember, you didn't want to talk to me. That's actually how we ended up getting involved. You
No,
go,
I know.
Lennox Lewis. I
I
thought you
know.
were a boxing guy. And I'm like, and I told you, Lennox Lewis. Yes, Lennox
No,
Lewis is an all-time great.
I was wrong, and you were right. All right, Dax, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, everybody.
Take
Happy
care.
2026.
Yes, have a good one.
All right, bye
That's
now.
Dax Khan. As he was talking, we had a lot of stuff that we we did over the years. Yeah, he was with us 18 years. I guess now I'm in my 23rd year. But anyway, joining us now, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Boxing Bob Newman. I can't talk today, Bob. Boxing Bob Newman, the Fight News editor in chief. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, everything's good. How about yourself?
Good. I hope you had a nice holiday and ready to kick off 2026.
I did, and as well for you. How was your holiday and New Year's?
It was very good. I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
so listen, man, most people during the holidays are sitting, during that month, are sitting home and, well, I can speak for myself, eating and, eating and, eating. But you were traveling the world, catching a lot of these conventions. Why don't you tell us about some of the stuff that was going on there?
Sure. Well, I did 3, and I got done just in the nick of time before Christmas, but and one before Thanksgiving. So we started out, I think around Halloween, we left or something for the WBO convention in Bogota, Colombia, which now in hindsight looks like we got while the getting was good. I don't think we're going to be going there anytime soon.
No, especially what they were saying recently. That's funny. I forgot that one was in Colombia.
Yeah, that one was in Colombia. It was great. Their theme was Loma's legacy because, Lomachenko had recently announced his retirement, and he was his first couple titles were actually with the WBO. So among other champs, they had him down there, and that was great. I mean, they had first of all, the WBO had a lot of help from the municipality, the local government in Bogota, and they had this gigantic, like 5-story convention hall allocated just for them. And in it, they kind of set up a makeshift museum of a lot of memorabilia, like robes and trunks and some video screens and all sorts of stuff just for Vasyl Lomachenko. And like I said, he was there with his manager Igis Klimas, gave us a nice interview, and they had a show, a live card there, which was pretty interesting. A Colombian Olympian turned pro, and men's fights, females fights. So it was an overall good convention. That's only the second WBO one that I've done, because I may have mentioned before, we have a guy, Dave Finger, who normally does them. But in addition to writing for Fight News, he is an actual courtroom judge. And I think he had a full docket, couldn't go, so he asked me to pinch hit for him. But it was good, weather was good, and their other theme that they had, like everywhere you turned, there was hashtag belts matter. And you may know what that's in reference to, strengthening body belts.
Yeah.
So the one kind of theme outside of paying homage to Lomachenko was really actually kind of calling for unity among the 4 major sanctioning bodies in regards to fending off these whatever it is that Dana White may be trying to do. And they talked a bit. They actually had a legal expert there, both their own, because every sanctioning body actually has a legal counsel, and they had somebody else on Zoom, and my apologies, I forget who. After 3 conventions in like a 7-week period, my brain's a little fried, and then of course coming home to the holidays. But they had a couple legal experts there, talking about the attempt to modify or somehow change the Muhammad Ali Act, and I think they're calling it the revival or something like that. And so they talked about some of the legal ramifications and their doubts that there is a legal path forward for that to happen, which they don't want to happen. They feel it protects the fighters. And also something interesting, the president of the WBO talked about the fact that, at least for simplicity's sake, the WBO, even though they're based in Puerto Rico, are American, as is the IBF, based in New Jersey. And the IBF is the one sanctioning body that does their conventions in like around Memorial Day, always late in May. And theirs is already set for Vietnam in May, 24th to the 28th. And the other 3 sanctioning bodies always do theirs sometime in the fall, whether it's October, November, December. But he talked about doing their convention in the fall, that's the WBO, and having the IBF kind of join in, almost like a dual convention. It might not necessarily be a full convention for the IBF, because they'll just be a few months removed from having theirs in May. But to basically put their minds and their boxing brains together and kind of, form a united front.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
I got to stop you for a second, because
No problem.
you got me going with this. It sounds and it's amazing that what you're telling me. All right.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like these same sanctioning bodies that have been pretty much at somewhat war for all these decades, right? Now they're combining, and they've been a lot more civil with the unification fights and stuff. It's been financially beneficial for all of them. So it's not as cold of a war as it used to be.
Right.
You're amazing me right now with the obvious attempt to team up, like you're mentioning, to ward off Zuffa Boxing and the potential league that they're trying to form, and that's why they need to modify the Ali Act just for contractual purposes or what have you. But one of the biggest things about this league would eliminate the value or even need for all these sanctioning bodies' belts, and I think that's the underlying reason for the fight. And it's a hard one to do, in my opinion. I mean, we're all looking out for the boxing, boxing purists are looking out for the sport of boxing. And in my opinion, all the titles kind of keep stuff in that gray area.
Well, so explain what you mean by all the titles keep things in the gray area.
Well, because we don't really know who the best fighter is, right? Because you have 4 sanctioning bodies, 4 guys that are parading around saying they're the world welterweight champion or what have you,
right?
And one might not be as good as the other, and so on and so forth. So what do? We unify it.
That's
so we
right.
have them all right. So we have them all unified. But if the fighters were forced to fight, better opposition, and we rose to the top like the old days, you would end up with one champion for each weight class. I kind of like that.
Right. And as you mentioned, the Cold War has kind of thawed a little bit, and you see way more unifications now. It's almost a given. There's practically no barriers to that. Like, as far as the heads of the governing bodies are concerned, they almost never say no to it. it usually does mean more money. And then of course, the only roadblock with that is when you have a guy with all 4 belts or a gal, and but each of the sanctioning bodies has a different number 1 contender, and of course they have a certain amount of time that they have to make a mandatory. And if you've got 4 different mandatory contenders, it's virtually impossible. But not,
But that's the ace. That's the ace in the hole that the sanctioning bodies have to keep them separating them. You know what I mean? And then they go through that whole unification again. I mean, look, it depends how. I didn't mean to get you off topic, but
no, that's okay.
It depends. It depends how you look at it. You know, I mean, everybody says the same thing you said, where they go, "Oh, there's more money. You can make more money with a belt." Well, that's only because that's the way it's being promoted. I've thought this league out, and it's very hard to take the top fighters that are around right now and assume they're going to walk away from their alliance with the sanctioning bodies and the monies and the shots, the fights that they get themselves that are going to be available to them. I get it. That's an impossible thing. But at this point, if you started this league and you started with younger fighters and you signed them to contracts similar to the UFC model, and then, the number 9 guy fights the number 8 guy and moves up that ladder, theoretically, at the end of the day, and depending upon the pool of fighters, because you never know how many of those fighters are going to enter into that arena, theoretically, you have tougher fights earlier on. Like what we see today, in my opinion, is tough fights after you got 2 different guys as champions and then they fight each other. That's their first real tough fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that part is true. I was thinking about that actually earlier today. There's, when you go on, message boards or whatever you want to call them, where people are spouting off about rankings or whatever. And, they say, well, how did this guy get to be number 1? Well, for example, with the recent Inoue Picasso fight, somebody was ranting and raving about how Picasso got to be number 1. Who did he fight? And and this person was actually, it seemed like an Inoue hater, which is baffling to me. How anybody could not like him. But they said he's fighting nobodies, and then they said, look at the record of the guy that he just fought, who was number 1. And you look and you go, okay, yeah, it's true. I kind of don't know too many, if any, of those guys that Picasso fought to get to number 1. But as I was thinking about this, you've got fighters coming up, from the time they turn pro, and if they're not going to fight another undefeated guy, which you don't see that too often, a couple of 8-0 guys, they want to keep their record going, and not risk it. It happens now and then, but not too often. You're going to get to that point, of being number 1 through attrition. And I actually challenge the fans who are saying, well, who was he fought? Well, you name me without looking at a magazine or on the internet or whatever. You name me guys who are not one of the 4 champions, or in the case of Inoue, he's the only champion. But you name me 10 122 pounders off the top of your head.
Ask him to name you 3.
You can't.
Well,
so how can you complain that he's fighting somebody you never heard of? Well, you probably never heard of any of them.
But the only way you hit it right earlier. These are they're not real boxing people. They're just social media tough guys. But the truth of the matter is the only thing you can ever blame a fighter for is ducking a fighter that's available to them in their weight class during their time fighting. That's it. You can't take an era that may have less than stellar fighters during a certain period of time and then blame the champions for not fighting anybody. It's not their fault. As long as they fight everybody available, you can't. And you know what? that Picasso was a good fighter. I mean, he wasn't a schlep. He wasn't a layup. Even
Right,
Inoue.
right. And and maybe let's give credit to Inoue to making him look average. Or
Again, no, I agree with you. Again, that's like a Lomachenko. Same way. He used to do that.
yeah, yeah. When people, well, another name for the fans that you're talking about, the internet tough guys.
Yeah.
You may see this, around the internet, casuals.
Yeah.
Guys
Yeah.
that just pop on here and there to see a fight. They don't even know who they're watching. And they'll just hoot and holler from the rafters about the quality of these guys. But like I said, they don't know the fighters anyway. And but going back to the point about when I said it's virtually impossible to face to make all four of your mandatories if it's four different guys or whatever. Well, Inoue puts that to rest. The guy has fought 4 times a year, if I'm not mistaken, definitely this year, but I think the year before that. And he fights frequently as a champ. And if you stay healthy, don't get injured, your opponent doesn't fall out. I know he had one guy actually fall out. My apologies, I'm forgetting the tall, lanky kid from England, from Australia fell out. So Inoue had to fight this Korean guy who nobody ever heard of. And that was one of the gripes on one of the forums I saw where they were pointing out, who was the Korean fighter. Well, and I explained, I normally I try not to respond to people on the forums, especially, in my capacity with Fight News. But and I don't know if this was one of those situations. So I think it was on Facebook or something. So I was a little bit safe there if they didn't know who I was. But I explained the kid that he was supposed to fight, who I think was a number one contender, fell out with an injury. And then he was so tall anyway for the weight, he ended up going up to featherweight and fighting the WBA champ Nick Ball. So, he whether it was a legit injury or illness or whatever the case was, that's not Inoue's fault. And I get a little bit bent too when guys are going on about well, this guy ducked that guy and so on and so forth. No, it's the fighters will fight anybody. It's their managers and promoters that are, as you know, pulling the strings and end up either pulling their fighter out or coming up with an injury or whatever. Because the fighter will fight anybody. Of course, they want to get paid too.
Hey, that's why I love the UK boxing scene, because those fighters, if they lose a fight, they don't lose any kind of fan base or anything, so they do put the kids in tougher. I love it. You mentioned Nick Ball. He's one of my favorites, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the UK and you've observed that loyalty with their fans. I mean, you and I are both old enough. We can go back to Frank Bruno, and they called him the lovable loser. It didn't matter if the guy lost. His fan base didn't go anywhere. And I think it was, 4 tries before he finally won the title, but he finally did.
Yep. No.
And
we mentioned him earlier. We were talking about Frank Bruno. But so you were at the WBC as well.
Yep, that was actually next. So that came near the end of November, about 3 weeks after getting back from Colombia. That was in Bangkok, Thailand. And
I saw some of your videos that you posted. But go ahead, I didn't mean to go. They were just great. I love the view, like the one with you guys were. What is that? Was that a rickshaw?
No, they're called a tuk-tuk, and it's basically a motorcycle with a 3-wheeler with a little pulling a rickshaw on a motorcycle though. But
I saw 2 versions of it. One from your view, and then one looking at you guys. Why?
Yeah.
They were great. But anyway,
that was our free day. But believe it or not, that was the day when everyone else was going home, and for whatever reason, flying back on a Friday was unbelievably more expensive than coming back on a Saturday. So I said, that's a no-brainer, man. I want to have a free day to just no boxing, no articles, no photographs, no deadlines, and just go, see the town. Now I've been there 4 times before, but I was with the Fight News owner who's never been there. So we went and basically we did the Buddha tour and, saw the reclining Buddha and the lucky Buddha and the big Buddha. And, it's not necessarily a case of you've seen one Buddha, you've seen them all, but it was good to get out and just, let the mind be free of boxing for a little bit and enjoy the weather because we knew what we were coming back to here. But they had a show as well. They did a live show in the middle of the week. Actually, I think on a Wednesday they had their vacant light flyweight title filled, and that was a case where one of the challengers fell out, and they had to get a guy, at the last second from, my apologies, Zarate. I think he was from Venezuela, which we won't talk about Venezuela, but they got him. He put up
all the countries that you're not going to be going back to.
Yeah, it's get it while the getting's good. Yeah. But decent show, international, one woman's fight. Fighters from all over the place. Thai, Australia. The Australian guy was actually Australia by way of, I can't remember, Liberia or someplace in Africa, China, Japan, and then a female fighter who's British but who has grown up in China for years because her dad had a job there or something like that. So it was quite an international show, but that was a good show. BC conventions are always massive and a lot going on and a lot to cover, sometimes simultaneously. You could have a meeting in this room and in another room at the same time, and you got to ask like one of your buds, hey man, let me know what I've missed when I come back. I got to go run into this room and get some pictures, get some notes, so on and so forth.
They went through the mandatory titles, right?
WBC kind of always does that. I mean, to some degree they all do, but the WBC does 2 separate meetings, one about rankings and one about the mandatories and when they were last made, and basically what the mandatory defense status is for the champ in each weight class. So, for example, and don't ask me to name which champ and all that right now, because it's been, almost a month, but this champ in this weight class doesn't have a mandatory right now because he just made one or whatever. Or he's got 2 to make because he won a vacant title. And I think that's what the WBC does. If you win a vacant title, you have to do 2 mandatories in a row. Different things like that. So they do that, but then they do the ratings usually the day before. And sometimes you'll get promoters and managers that'll come up to the microphone. So it's a big assembly. The board of directors and people on the ratings committee or the mandatory committee are sitting up at the dais, and then someone will come up to the microphone, and inevitably every time there will be somebody like at the ratings committee meeting where mostly everybody's trying to stump for their fighter to move up in the rankings, and someone will talk about a mandatory thing, and then they have to remind the guy, that's tomorrow, this is ratings. Oh, I'm sorry. And then they go sit down. So
didn't they announce the Crawford thing there?
Yes, they did. And that was a situation that I was a little bit miffed at because, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
The weigh-ins for the title fight were happening at exactly the same time as they were going down. I think, I don't know if it was the ratings or the mandatories. I actually don't remember right now. But they were going down or going up. Usually they start at heavyweight and go down. Sometimes they say, let's make it crazy and we'll go up, from strawweight up or whatever. But I was, I figured, hey, there's a world title fight happening here. I need to go over, get the weigh-ins, report the weights as, we always do when there's a fight going on, or we rely on someone, at the scene to send us the weights and maybe the 2 main protagonists squaring off or whatever. So I was down the hall at that room, and when I came back, James Blears, who works for the WBC, he's a Brit that lives in Mexico City and works for the WBC, said, "You just missed it." And I think they stripped Crawford or whatever, and it had to do. It was a bit ugly, even though Crawford wasn't there. He was invited, but we now know why he wasn't there. But
He was invited, hoping that he brought his checkbook.
exactly. Well, he didn't show up, but I guess, and I didn't know this until this was all happening. He didn't pay the WBC portion of the sanctioning fee. I guess all the organizations came to a consensus to normally all 4 sanctioning bodies ask for 3% of the purse. So I don't know what he made, 50 million. And the BO, BF, and BA made it 0.5%, which was, I think that's 250,000. The BC made it 0.6%, which made it 300,000. So whether it was on, principle or what, Crawford said, I'm not paying it. And I don't know if, I think he did pay the other 3 sanctioning bodies, but not the BC. He, obviously, you may have seen some videos that he put up online, where he disparaged the BC and the President Mauricio Suleiman pretty badly. Obviously, nobody likes that. Mauricio especially doesn't like, being called out and having, allegations made about what the money goes to, so on and so forth. There were some other members of WBC that felt bad that it was getting ugly. And in the end, they had a lot of times when they have guests that are there, they'll have things like posters or placards. And in this case, they had these cool, funny caricatures of the fighters. And they had one of Crawford that was huge. It's like 4 feet tall or whatever. And so that particular person brought it out near the end of not that meeting, but the end of the convention, when basically it was like the okay, we're closing the convention. It's been great, blah, blah, blah. And it was brought out, and she said, we're all going to sign this. And if you want to come up and sign it, everybody sign it too. We're going to, make sure he gets this. And Mauricio, he kind of, it had been a couple days. He kind of calmed down a little bit and said, we wish him well. He didn't get back into the whole politics of it all. And then that was that. So, and then the retirement announcement came. So he hadn't retired by this time yet.
No, he actually retired after the convention.
Right, exactly. So, it's not a moot point. Like, he still didn't pay them. But yeah, he retired after that, which I don't think had anything that he didn't say like, oh God, my feelings are hurt, I can't go on with this. I think, it was probably brewing and he was going to do it anyway. But that's what happened there. But the Ali Act and the kind of the solidarity type of thing against, Zuffa wasn't mentioned. And I don't remember if Dana White by name was mentioned at the WBC convention. But it was one of those elephants in the room. There was not very specific talk about, the 4 sanctioning bodies aligning, so on and so forth, at the WBC convention. But it was, like, for example, I'm sure you heard, that Dana White told Mauricio at the Canelo Crawford fight, you're not getting up in the ring with those belts. And I guess Mauricio told him, well, you better have a couple of huge security guys to stop me. And he got up there and he put on the hat and the t-shirt and gave him the belt. And as well as this, a lot of times for major fights, the WBC will do like some kind of a special belt. And it doesn't, I see guys getting bent out of shape about that on forums too. And I don't really think it's anything worth getting bent about. It's just when you have a fight of, huge magnitude like that was, and history being made, it's just a commemorative belt. Who cares? It's not another, like, it's not a 5th organization or something. It's just,
they don't charge for, they don't charge.
No, it's just a here that, it's, right. It's just a gift for you, for whoever the winner is, so no, they don't charge for it.
Yeah, no. It's not a passable title like a belt.
No, it's just commemorative. And people get bent because, like, I think the WBC is the only one that does that. So, you know, I always say, like, there's folks that, the keyboard warriors, they jump on these forums and they make all these assumptions and they talk about rigged ratings and all kinds of different things. Even, back in, like, let's say, the ESPN days of, say, like 10, 15 years ago, when, Teddy Atlas would rant and rave. And I love Teddy, but I'm just, making an observation about the, we be collecting was what the WBC and stood for, and we be asking is what the WBA stood for, and so on and so forth. And one media guy who was noteworthy and people knew, Bob Sheridan, who did, basically called all the King Vision fights, everything that Don
Colonel
King
Bob.
ever did, practically.
Colonel Bob.
Colonel Bob. He said, you know what? These guys, they've got a platform. They're on television. They're ranting and raving. And they're invited. They're welcome to come to these conventions. He would come to a lot of them. He would actually sit and take the judge's exam, the ABC judge's exam, just to see, where he fell on it. And he said, why would I want to hurt the sport in which I'm making my living by decrying it every day and, ranting and raving? And I agreed with him on that. I interviewed him once and we talked about that. Like, I understand if there's, that there's a wrong that needs to be righted, but when you don't know and you think something kind of stinks of something, but you don't have the facts, all you're doing is riling a lot of other people up.
It's even worse now.
The keyboard warriors get riled up. And
there's you can't even. Yeah, I don't even know what's true anymore.
No,
you got people. You know where I go to find out when if the news is true.
I think so.
I go to Fight News, fightnews.com, of course.
Well,
but,
no opinion. We stay away from opinion, which is why I don't pay attention to the other sites. And even though we do have social media accounts, Fight News has a YouTube, a Facebook, an Instagram, and an X or Twitter account. But that really is like, for revenue generation and but not spreading hearsay. If we have anything up on any of those social accounts, it's coming from articles or maybe smaller snippets of longer interviews that we do that we'll have up on our YouTube channel or whatever. It's not these announcements of fights that are not really happening, that are fake, and you see a ton of that on Facebook where these people, they actually make fake posters of a fight that's not signed, and in some cases it never did get signed.
You know why they do that, right?
Well, clicks.
Well, yeah, of course. That's the real reason. But no, I was just saying they want to be in case it comes true, they could say they were the first ones to report it.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't really think of that, but
Bob, I'm running out of time, and I got you. I got to know. Tell us about some of the changes that you guys have made to the website, and you mentioned the social media. I mean, you told me that we were going to kick off. You're the first official guest of 2026, and we were going to kick off some stuff for the site. So how's that going?
It's going good. I mean, we still have some. We actually unveiled the new, skin, if you want to call it that, the new look, during, I'm trying to remember if it was the BC, I think the BC or maybe the BA convention. We're like in the middle of it. So basically there's a new look, which, you yourself, I think, have gotten to see. And you also experienced, there was some glitches in the beginning, and there's going to be a few other things that we want to change. Like we're working on the rankings of the 4 sanctioning bodies so that we can you can actually click the tab for those and see them kind of in 4 columns side by side from heavyweight all the way down to strawweight. It's going to have a slightly different look than the way it used to on the old the old platform. So that's one way that one thing our webmaster is still kind of working on. I think, our contact us page isn't quite there, but I think we actually right now we have on our Facebook page, we actually have a contest, if you will, or a drawing for a subscription to Paramount Plus, which, is going to be, they're getting into the boxing game. So there are going to be some drawings. We have some T-shirts that are going to be available. We came up with a design and everything, but now we've got to do some ordering to actually physically have those on hand. So, but largely, and I'm sure I'm missing some things here. But largely the look is different, and we're going to have tabs. So the other thing that's different, I'm sorry, is that there's some other combat sports that we're going to be covering and putting news up for, whether it's, whether we're actually at the events or we get press releases from the promoters. So,
hey, Bob,
yeah.
You're leaving out a really important improvement that you guys made. And I'm going to remind you, you're more cell phone friendly. Wasn't that one of the biggest things?
Well, yes, the ads. So we are going to have some sponsorship, but right now, yeah, you're right. And I told you I was leaving something out.
Because it's to me, it's a heck of a lot easier to read on the cell phone. That was some upgrades that you guys made.
Well, you know what? Yeah, you're right about that. And I apologize because as the new owner loves to remind me, I'm one of the dinosaurs that still does so much on a desktop. He says he doesn't know.
No, so I got to admit, so do I. Don't get me wrong. I was bragging about the cell phone, but I'm usually on my computer. I just like.
Yeah, I mean, in a pinch, I will actually, if I'm like not at home and something's kind of important that I get an email on or whatever, I'll post it on my phone, and obviously it's smaller and I've got to be a little bit more careful, but photos, if it's, photos are a little trickier because I've got to downsize them first, and we're photo based. So you'll notice every single new headline, you won't see an article on Fight News anymore that doesn't have some sort of visual, whether it's an actual photo of the fight or posing for weigh-ins or the banner for the promoter or whatever. So every article is going to have the backdrop of a photo with the headline right over it. So, and that's a little tricky to do on the phone because I can't downsize the photos on my phone, and they can't be massive like they are when they actually come in sometimes through emails. So that I have to do at home. But we actually have kind of like some place cards for the different situations, like fight announcement or fight result or weigh-ins or whatever, with our new logo on it that I do have handy. And I can pop those on my phone, and then when I get back home, I can swap it out for, a proper photo or whatever. So, yeah, and there's still going to be a few more tweaks, that we're going to do as they come up. But I'm happy with the look. I'm happy with the readership because it keeps climbing, and it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes, or almost the ashes. So, I feel that we're well on our way. We've gotten a lot of positive responses, but yeah, I think we're well on our way to resuming our former status as the go-to source. And like, you and I both know, we want to be like Walter Cronkite, just the news.
Yeah, well, that's why I've been going to that site all these years, and I still do, and it's the only one because I'm opinionated. That's what I do. But when I want to know the facts, I just go to you guys because there's not another one like it, to be honest with you.
Well, I know. Listen, man, you've got enough of your own opinions. You don't want to listen to anybody else's.
You know what? Because if somebody had more than me, I'd take it personal. So,
yeah. But, have you heard about I hope it's still true, the February 28th, I think, is I think it's a Manny Pacquiao promotion show at Turning Stone.
No, because if you recall, I was relying on you to let me know, and you said that as soon as you heard, you would. No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I just heard it from a one of the officials that's with that commission. So there's nothing on BoxRec yet. I don't know who the fighters are going to be, but we got something to look forward to in another month.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So hopefully, if the weather's cooperating, I'll see you there.
yeah, no, that's good, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. And when you do find out some information, email it to me or text it or something. But I appreciate you coming on. And anytime you have something that you want to get out and you want to come on, just let me know and we'll get you on, brother.
Well, I will. And if there's something, you want to talk about, likewise, just give me a shout. All righty.
Sounds
All right.
good. I hope
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
All right, brother. Take
All
care.
Right. Bye-bye.
Take care. That's my man, Boxing Bob Newman. And man, I wish I might even ask him to come back on and finish telling us about what was going on. I mean, it was real intriguing about the conventions. It's so cool that he gets to go there, and it's not like you just sit. What I was glad he got across was it's not like you're just sitting there watching a film. I mean, there's so many different things going on at the same time. There could be a clinic across the hall, and he's covering something else. So great stuff. One thing I wanted to mention real quick: Tyson Fury officially announced that he's unretiring from boxing. I wonder if he's going for that retiring and unretiring record. But he's definitely fighting in 2026. I personally, like I said earlier, I thought that the best fight for him is Anthony Joshua. If Anthony Joshua is able after the accident, it makes sense. It's still a huge fight in England. They'll both make some money. Obviously, it won't be for a title, but you could be rest assured that the winner of that fight would definitely be in the mix for a title shot. So that's kind of what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. There's a fight this weekend. I keep telling you guys about this heavyweight. To me, he's underrated, and he could very possibly be the best heavyweight out there, aside from the champ Usyk, and that's Ajit KBL, who's fighting this weekend. It's going to be on the Zone. Here's the thing. This is my thing. I'll break down the fight. I'll give you my predictions. Right. I'll be shocked. Okay. I just said how opinionated I am, but he's taken on. Now, remember, he's the WBC, KBL is the WBC interim world heavyweight champ, and rightfully so. And he's taken on Damian Kinba, is how I believe you say his last name. And this guy is 17-0 with 11 knockouts. He's 29 years old, which is 4 years younger than KBL, which kind of surprised me. But check this out. He's 6'7", 4 inches taller with a 6-inch reach advantage. He's fought 77 times, 77 rounds in his 17 fights, and he had 12 amateur fights. He was 9-3. Now, he's not rated by the WBC, the WBO, the IBF, the WBA, the Billy C boxing rankings, the Ring rankings, or the ESPN rankings. The computer BoxRec has him ranked at number 31. And the best computer ratings I like out there, which is the IBO Boxing's top 100, they have him ranked at number 33. His last 3 fights, they were against decent opposition for sure. As a matter of fact, of his 17 wins, his last 3 fights really were the best ones. And they were all last year. They were all in 2025. He beat Andrzej Warzik in February of 2025 by a 3rd round stoppage. Warzik was 34-4 when he fought him. He beat Marcin Sibley by an 8th round stoppage in June of last year. And then Joey Dwejko, he beat in October, and he stopped Dwejko, which is pretty decent. I mean, Dwejko's a tough kid. I called a couple of his fights, and he's been in there with some tough guys. So to hear that he got knocked out, KO, in the round 7 was pretty impressive. And like I said, he fought 3 times last year against decent opposition. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls of all ages, is all I can say about him because he's stepping in the ring with AJ KBL. He has not had an amateur career. And like I said, he's 4 years older at 33 years old. He's got a 4-inch and height and a 6-inch reach disadvantage. He's 26-0 with 18 knockouts. But look, I could go on with the stats. He's got 131 rounds as a pro, 54 more than his opponent. But he's because he's the WBC interim champion, he's not rated by anybody else, WBO, IBF, WBA. But the Billy C Boxing has him ranked at number 2 in the world. The computer has him at number 3 in the world. And the IBO's 100 has him at number 1 in the world. So I think between all – oh, and by the way, the Ring magazine has him ranked at number 2. And then ESPN, who really – I don't think they even know boxing anymore. They got him at number 7. The rest of us, computer or myself, we all have him in the top 3, except for ESPN, who has him at number 7. And the fighters they have ahead of him, there's no way. This guy is underrated. He's not going to have any problem with his opponent this weekend. This is a showcase fight for him. KBL by knockout. That's my prediction, and I'm sticking to it. I got an email from my man Jordan from the other side of the pond from the UK. He says, hey, Billy C, I hope it was all as well and that you and yours enjoyed a great holiday season. I thank you very much. We did, and I hope you guys did too. He says, regarding your listener Chase's email about Michael Watson, I'm presuming Chase is from the U.S., and if so, so great to hear some acknowledgement for your side of the pond about a Brit who is often overlooked. You mentioned in that show about an old timer who had passed at the age of 93, and you wanted to mention those guys more. It would be good to get some of these guys on before they pass, and Michael Watson would be a great candidate if you were able to hunt him down. Another from that era, certainly worth a mention, that doesn't get the attention, is the Celtic warrior Steve Collins, who has 2 wins over Eubank and 2 wins over Ben. Hey, listen, I would love to have any of these guys on. I mean, in the past, we've had people reach out and want to come on the show, and I would certainly welcome it. So if you have any leads, let me know, and we'll see if we can track them down. He says, on another note, the Gypsy King has announced a return. I think he's past his best and open to getting beat off anyone inside the top 10. He says, I think Fury 2018 to 22 was a match for any top heavyweight from history, but his up and down in weight plus his age have caught up with him. As a Fury fan, I don't want to see him come back and get beat by a lesser fighter. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for the email, Jordan. My thoughts are, I've been a big fan. We had a UK correspondent years ago. His name was Thomas Newman, and he used to give me the UK boxing scene, and we had him come on the show and tell everybody, but he's the one that turned me on to Tyson Fury, and I think I'm pretty sure it was his 3rd pro fight, and Thomas used to send me links to fights, and I've watched every Tyson Fury fight from that 3rd fight on, right to up to date, and I've watched him evolve and everything else. And Jordan, I totally understand what you mean. I think he's one of those fighters that actually got a little better as time went on and as he aged. I think he got a little cocky, and he was trying to win fights, just because of his name. I think the on and off, the stopping is going to hurt him. But like I said earlier, to me, he comes back, he gets into phenomenal shape, and he fights Anthony Joshua, at Wembley or, someplace over in the UK. And if he wins, he'll get another title shot. I like that fight. But thanks for the email, my man. So we got some other news we'll talk about next week. But we're talking about the cruiserweight division. Ryan Rozicki is returning on March 7th in Nova Scotia, Canada. So we'll keep you posted on that. If you recall, Ryan Rozicki and McKillian, You know, they have a history, and J.R. Patai is calling out McKillian, and I'm loving the cruiserweight division. Hey, listen, it was great to come back. Coach had to ask me some questions during the interview there, and I'm sorry I couldn't get to him, but we'll get it. I always appreciate all the insight from everybody in the chat room. So I'm hoping that we have a great year for boxing, and I hope everybody has a prosperous and healthy 2026. And I look forward to you guys next week. So make sure you tune in, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby. Be good.